What would you do if, in a deserted alley, a woman wearing a plain white mask stopped you and asked, "Am I beautiful?" Welcome to the Hollow Ledger, where eerie urban legends are brought back to life. If you love chilling stories like this, don't forget to subscribe, like, and drop a comment about whether you believe or not. Now, follow me back to that alley where I met Kuchisake Onna. My name is Akio. This happened when I was still a high school student in a small village outside Kyoto. Everything began with rumors whispered around my school. They said that whenever the rainy season came, there would be a woman in an old kimono, a plain white mask covering half her face, lurking near the school gate at dusk. The younger kids whispered, "If she stops you, never answer her." It sounded ridiculous, but the way they trembled when telling it ... made me curious. You know how boys are. I believed I was brave enough to expose any childish ghost story ... So, one misty evening, I deliberately walked alone, dragging my steps through the narrow alley behind our school. That alley was tight, the stone walls mossy and damp, lit only by a dim paper lantern swaying from an old wooden post. Drops of water dripped onto shallow puddles, blending with the sound of my footsteps squelching on wet earth. I thought I wouldn't see anyone, but just as I was about to leave the alley, I saw a figure standing perfectly still. A faded kimono, long black hair draped over her shoulders, the white mask gently rising and falling with her breath. I froze. For some reason, my heart pounded. My throat dried out. She slowly turned her head toward me. Her eyes, not fierce, not kind, just dark wells, staring straight through me. A cold gust swept the alley, shaking the lantern, casting her shadow long across the cracked wall. Then she spoke. Her voice was soft, but muffled behind the damp mask. "Am I beautiful?" Just like the rumored dot, I inhaled sharply. Part of me wanted to run, but my feet stuck to the wet ground. I scoffed to myself. This is just some prank. Yet my mouth still answered, "Yes, beautiful." Her eyes narrowed slightly, as if smiling. From the long sleeve of her kimono, a pale hand slowly emerged, white as porcelain, nails long, trembling. The drizzle still pattered on my shoulders. And then she lowered her head, fingers brushing the mask strings ... Then, what about like this? I stood frozen. I could hear the rain dripping down my neck, icy cold. Her hand slowly tugged at the mask strings, teasingly slow. I swallowed hard, unable to look away from the face slowly revealed beneath that damp fabric dot at first. Porcelain. Pale cheeks, smooth skin, bright red lips. But then, her mouth didn't stop there. It stretched grotesquely, torn wide from one corner to the other, exposing stained teeth and a fresh raw scar that still wept red. I felt bile rise in my throat. My legs staggered back, but hit the cold stone wall behind me. The rain now fell, harder, drumming on our shoulders, but she stood there, lifting her head with that gaping mouth twisted into a mock smile. Like this, "Am I beautiful?" Her voice was no longer gentle. It was warped, something halfway between a whisper and the wind shriek in the narrow alley. I wished I could run, but my knees trembled too much to lift my feet in my head. The kids' warnings echoed. "Don't answer, don't answer." But it was too late. I had already answered the first question. I stammered, "You're still beautiful." She tilted her head. Rain trickled down her chin, dripping onto her faded kimono collar. I glimpsed something in her eyes, sorrow, anger, emptiness. I couldn't tell. Then, suddenly, she stepped back half a pace. From within her sleeve, a glint of metal flashed, a pair of silver scissors. "If you think I'm beautiful, then I'll make you just like me." Panic seized me, my mind blank. The scissors gleamed, then vanished into her sleeve as she raised them to my face. I could hear the metal clicking and her cold breath brushing my ear. I blurted out, "Wait!" She froze. Those deep, hollow eyes drilled into mine. I'd never seen anyone stand that close and terrify me so completely. I gulped, brain racing faster than my pounding heart. I remembered the stories. If you were clever, you could distract her. I stuttered, "I'm sorry, but my mother's waiting at home. I have candy for you. Would you like it?" I reached into my pocket. All I had was a single sugar candy I sucked on during late-night study sessions. She eyed it. Her? Hollow eyes flicked to the scissors, which paused mid-air. The rain had stopped without me noticing. Only a cold mist remained, and the lantern's paper shade flickered in the wind dot. She tilted her head, whispered, "Candy? Sweet, but it melts. Too fast." Then she lowered her hand, the scissors clattering to the muddy puddle at her feet. I stood there, gasping. She touched her torn mouth, muttered something I couldn't hear. Then, like smoke, she turned, slipping into the narrow path behind the old houses. Her silhouette blurred, swallowed by the mist. I collapsed, sweat chilling my spine. The candy, still in my hand, soaked. The scissors lay there, half buried in mud, blade glinting under the swaying lantern. When I looked up, the alley was empty. Only me, the cold wind, and a question no one had truly answered. If she returns tomorrow, will I be so lucky again? I didn't dare walk through that alley alone again. Every night after seeing Kuchisake Onna, I dreamt of her hollow eyes staring at me. I'd wake up drenched in sweat, my throat dry, my ears echoing her question. The next day, I didn't dare tell my mother. I just sat in class, hollow-eyed, while my friends whispered, "Did you hear? A kid from the next school vanished last week." The story of the slit-mouthed woman spread beyond our gate, seeping into every tea house and corner store. Everyone claimed they'd seen her, but I knew not everyone was lucky enough to return like me. One evening after class, I slipped into an old tea house at the village edge. Its owner, an old man in his 70s with clouded eyes but sharp ears, always sat sipping tea and flipping through yellowed newspapers. When I asked him about Kuchisake Onna, he only chuckled, eyes drifting to the rattling wooden door. "Long ago, this village saw something terrible, you know?" His voice was slow, steady, like tea dripping from the pot. "Back in the war days, there was a woman, beautiful, so beautiful men would stop in their tracks. Her husband was a samurai, but he was jealous and cruel. Rumors spread that she was unfaithful. In a mad rage, he slit her mouth from ear to ear with a pair of scissors and left her in an alley behind the village." He paused, drawing on a thin cigarette, voice turning raspier. Her body vanished, but the story didn't. Since then, whenever the drizzle comes, people see her wandering. They call her Kuchisake Onna, the slit-mouthed woman. What she asks isn't just, "Am I beautiful?" What she wants is someone to be just like her. A shiver ran through me. That night she'd said it too. "I'll make you like me." Remembering it made my skin crawl. "So, is there any way to avoid her?" I asked, trying to hide my trembling voice. The old man looked at me, his clouded eyes deep as a misty pond. "Avoid her? Once you've answered her first question? She remember your face." He sipped his tea, sighing through a thin smile. "If you meet her, you can distract her. Candy, mint drops, anything sweet. They say she likes sweets. They dull her craving for flesh." He paused. "But don't think you can run forever, boy. She'll come back." I left the tea house under a light rain. The evening sky was gray, raindrops pooling along the muddy path. In my mind, that torn mask, that gaping mouth and hollow eyes replayed over and over. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat by my window. Outside, only a small garden overgrown, with weeds and the rustle of bamboo in the wind. I thought I'd be safe. But at midnight, I heard tapping on the window. Tap, Tap. 3 soft, steady knocks. I held my breath. Maybe the wind? But wind doesn't knock in a perfect rhythm. I crept closer, drawing aside the thin curtain, peering through the fogged glass. Outside stood a figure, kimono sleeves, black hair draped down, the same white mask. She had come to my house. I froze. For a moment, her eyes met mine through the glass, cutting through the mist. She didn't speak. She didn't knock again. She just waited for my answer to a question I'd once dared to speak. I stood motionless at my window, barely breathing. My breath fogged the glass, but she stayed still. Her hair, her faded kimono, that white mask beneath the cold moonlight. My heart pounded so hard, I feared she could hear it. Am I beautiful? Number. Voice, yet the words echoed in my mind, clear as if she'd whispered right by my ear. I stumbled back, bumping into my desk. The window stayed closed. The curtain drifted down like I'd never touched it. I blinked, trying to steady my breath. What should I do? The old man's words returned. Once you've answered once, she will remember you. I remembered the sweets I kept in my coat pocket for late-night study sessions. Thought my hand trembled as I pulled them out. She stared straight through the glass at me. I have candy. Do you want some? No reply. But the knocking came again. Tap, tap, tap. Faster, more urgent. The glass shivered gently, as if someone was pushing from outside. I stepped back. A sudden gust blew the curtain aside. Moonlight streamed through, casting her face clear. The mask was gone. Her mouth gaped wide, a torn red slash stretching ear to ear. That hollow stare bored into my skull as her voice slipped. Inside my mind, beautiful? I tossed the candy toward the window, desperate. It bounced off the glass, landing on the sill. She glanced down, her pale hand reaching through the slight gap, picking it up. Her nails, sharp as crow's talons, scratched the glass, leaving long white lines. A soft, twisted laugh echoed, like wind howling through cracked roof tiles. Sweet, but not enough. I stumbled backward, my back against the cold wall. I wanted to scream for my mother, but my throat locked up. Only one thought circled in my head. Don't answer. Don't answer again? But it seemed she didn't need my voice anymore. Her eyes seemed to dig into my mind, forcing me to think, to fear. And that fear was all she craved. Then suddenly, she vanished. The window closed itself. The curtain fell back in place. I flung it open. No one outside, just a damp garden and scattered bamboo leaves. No footprints, but the candy I'd thrown was gone. The next morning at school, my classmates teased, "You look like a ghost, Aki. Gaming too late again?" I didn't answer. Their jokes felt far away. I only thought of last night and the old man's words. Once you've seen her, there's no going back. At lunch break, I slipped behind the school, the old alley where I'd first met her. I ran my hand along the mossy wall, tracing the faint scratch marks I thought were from bored kids carving graffiti. This time, I saw a deeper groove, like scissor marks on stone. Squatting down, I found faint old kanji hidden under the moss. Before I could read it all, I heard footsteps behind me. A girl. Same uniform, shoulder-length hair, round glasses. I didn't know her. You've seen her too, haven't you? She whispered, voice so soft I leaned in to catch it. Before I could speak, she pressed a folded note into my hand, then fled, vanishing like a shadow behind the old building. I unfolded it. Just one line, the ink smudged by water. If you want to survive, you must learn to say nitrogen monoxide. That afternoon, I clutched the note with, "If you want to survive, you must say nitrogen monoxide," scribbled on it through every dull class. I couldn't focus. The teacher's voice droned on like rain, dripping on cracked roof tiles about when the bell rang. I waited at the school gate, hoping to see that girl again. Students streamed past me in waves, laughing, chatting, but none of them wore round glasses or a shoulder-length bob. She'd vanished like she never existed. I brought the note home, hidden under my pillow. That night, I lay staring at the cracked ceiling, listening to the cicadas outside. One question looped through my mind. Say no? But to who? To her? Or to her question? Past midnight, I heard tapping on my window again. Tap. Tap. This time, I didn't flinch. I moved slowly to the window, my hand clutching the last candy in my coat pocket. There she was, Kuchisake Onna in the pale moonlight, hair hanging limp, the mask frayed at the edges. I knew she'd ask again. I knew if I didn't find the courage, I'd have no nights left to regret it. She tilted her head, her eyes digging into mine through the glass. Am I beautiful? My mouth went dry. My pulse thundered in my ears. I remembered the note, the girl's warning. I forced my mouth open, my voice cracked and hoarse. No, she flinched. The mask quivered. Her pale hand froze mid-her. Those hollow eyes widened slightly, reflecting the cold moonlight. No, the whisper scraped across my skull like a dull blade. The wind outside picked up, rattling the window frame. My chest ached, but I repeated it. Louder. No, you're not beautiful. No scream, no scissors gleaming. Just a low, almost human sigh, so faint it sounded like a stray cat whining outside my roof. She stood there, shoulders trembling. A dark trickle leaked from her torn mouth. Blood or rain, I couldn't tell. She turned her head, pulling the mask back up over her ruined smile. And then, just like that, she stepped back, melting into the shadows. The tapping stopped. The window rattled once, then fell silent, leaving only the damp hush of the night. Next morning, I went back behind the school to that mossy wall. The kanji scratched that were clearer now. Lines and lines of the word nitrogen monoxide carved again and again. If you want to survive, you must say no. Who carved this? Who knew before me? How many had never dared say it out loud? During lunch, I spotted her, the girl with glasses, standing by the old koi pond behind the library. She looked at me, her tired eyes softening behind the glass. You did it, didn't you? Who are you? I asked, still gripping the burned note in my pocket. She raised her finger to her lips, a hush gesture, then pointed back at the mossy wall. In her eyes, I saw myself, not just a curious student anymore, but someone who glimpsed the other side of something that never really dies. She whispered, "Tonight, lock your window, burn the note. If she comes back, you know what to say." Then she turned, blending into the noisy tide of students in the courtyard. I stood alone, and in my pocket, heartbeat slowing. I knew Kuchisake Onna would return, but this time, I knew how to say nitrogen monoxide. That night, I locked my window tight, just like she told me. I burned the note. The ashes scattered into the cold wind that slipped through my door. I leaned my back against the wall, eyes fixed on the glass panes trembling in the breeze. I had everything ready. The last candy, my small flashlight, and a pencil sharpener's blade. If she returned, I'd say nitrogen monoxide. But deep down, a voice whispered, "Is nitrogen monoxide really enough?" Rain drizzled again, soft on the old tiled roof. The wind carried a musty scent of damp earth. I must have drifted off against the wall, because the next sound jolted me awake. Knock, knock. This time, it wasn't the window, it was my door. I froze, heart slamming against my ribs. Mother? No, she never came to my room so late. She always slept early. My hand hovered over the latch. The knocking came again. Knock, knock. A voice slipped through the wood. "Aki, open up for Mother. It's cold out here, darling." I stopped breathing. It was her voice, gentle, warm, exactly like how she'd call me for breakfast. Every morning. But something twisted in my gut. My mother never made warm milk at midnight. "Mother," I called softly. "Open up, Aki. Mother brought you warm milk. Please, I'm so cold, so soft, so familiar." But I heard it, the slight rasp beneath the sweetness. Kuchisake Onna didn't need the window anymore. Tonight, she wore my mother's voice. I clenched my teeth, pressed my forehead to the door. My mind raced. Then I whispered, "Mother, is your face beautiful?" Silence. Then the voice changed, dropping its warmth like a discarded mask. "Beautiful, don't you think?" The hairs on my neck bristled. I felt it, the scissor glint behind the wood. I pressed my palm flat against the door, took a shaky breath, and said it clear. "No, not beautiful." Silence. Then a ragged sigh, low like wind moaning through a broken window frame. The door trembled once. The air turned icy cold. Then a laugh, hoarse and broken, seeped through the cracks. "You know how to say nitrogen monoxide now?" "Good, but not everyone can say it like you." The wind outside howled. The knob rattled, but no one pushed it open. I pressed my ear to the wood. Outside, only the drip of rain and the rustle of bamboo. I sat back against the wall, heartbeat loud in my head. I remembered her words. "If she comes back, you know what to say." At dawn, I checked the old alley behind the school one last time. The mossy wall was slick with rain. The carved nitrogen monoxide markings were still there, layered over decades of fear. Near the bamboo clump, I found a single white mask, damp, resting on a dry twig. I didn't pick it up. I didn't kick it away. I left it there under the drizzle, a silent warning. I know she's still out there. Kuchisake Onna never really leaves. She's waiting in the misty alleys, behind school gates, by half-open windows. She knocks, and she asks, "Am I beautiful?" And not everyone will dare say nitrogen monoxide.